Straight through. Actually, just
I was
straight
thought
through.
I'd ask.
Straight through. Let's just do it. Yeah.
All right.
Good question.
Yeah.
It's little details, you know.
Very exactly. Okay.
All right, Mayor, we are live on YouTube.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Well, welcome to the Federal Way City Council meeting. It's 6:31 p.m. and I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome to our regular meeting of the Federal Way City Council. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With liberty and justice for all.
Very good. All right, well, welcome. Great to see everybody back. We were just welcoming our council member Kochmar back. It's great to see you. And
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll just jump right into it. We do not have any other presentations before we get to the mayor's emerging issues and report, and I will dive right in. So as I just sent an email to the council a few minutes ago, I am in receipt of the 22 applications for the diversity, equity, and inclusion position that closed Friday. Yeah, exactly. Yay. Mm-hmm. So very exciting. And, we kept the position open for several weeks and was just starting to hear from the council members. And we've yet to, before asked, we've yet to formally decide a process in regard to normally for a position like this, we would do this internally. There have been several requests in regard to this. I'll talk to the deputy mayor, the council president tomorrow. And also, the team here and think about how we want to go about this. But no final decision has been made yet. So obviously we want the process to be inclusive. But obviously there's, it's just want to be very thoughtful about how we go about it. And so I haven't made a final decision yet. But I'll, if you have any, recommendations, feel free to email me individually. And again, I'll talk to the council president tomorrow, as well as Jean and the team here. And we've also received a request to have a diversity commission application, diversity commission representation as well. So I'm taking all that in consideration. It's a very exciting position. And, the longest journeys start with the first step. And someone said that a long time ago, and we're taking these steps, so it's great, and it's great to be on this journey with you. Okay, let's see here. Next, we have on the agenda the emergency cold weather shelter activation, and so do we have Sarah on the line for this? Stephanie, is Sarah, or?
Carol, I'm here.
Very good. Okay, go ahead.
And I don't have a formal report, but I would just say that we did activate severe weather shelter for Thursday evening through Sunday. Sunday looked a little bit different with the use of a hotel model. Catholic Community Services was a great partner in opening the shelter, and we were able to serve 4 people on 3 of the 4 nights and 7 on a 4th. We did anticipate having a lower turnout, in part due to COVID-19 and a lot of the measures around COVID-19 and reducing congregate settings. So this was a congregate shelter, and we did so using public health guidance. I would also just thank the Parks Department and many of the staff at the community center who made this possible, as well as Ray Gross, who worked diligently on the public health side for making the shelter be as safe as possible as well.
And a big thanks to you, Sarah. This is the first time we, sorry about that. I should have moved my microphone, you guys, sorry. my chronic throat clearing. Sarah, thank you so much. Yeah, I want to let the council and everybody listening and staff certainly knows this. We have been working on this for months on end, and then we were thinking that in a setting like this, because of COVID-19, as we outlined in the to council in a previous email, that the preference would have been to be able to utilize the Red Lion Hotel for this purposes in a short emergency cold weather setting because it's not congregate. But then because of staffing issues with Catholic Community Services, of which we is a necessary partner for staffing, we didn't have the staffing requirements, so we went to the fallback position and to the historic first ever use of the community center for emergency cold weather shelter of this kind. And I want to thank once again Sarah and Ray and John Hutton and his team. Leaf, our person over there, was there into the early morning hours. And, we've got to make sure, and that's what is a little bit complicated about this, is make sure you've got trained staff, and that's CCS, but also once you get over to the community center, we were using the community rooms. We wanted to make sure that we've got to have community center staff there as well. So we pulled it off, and we were actually, our biggest fear, and this thing that we were talking about a great deal was, especially in the environment that we're in non-congregate shelter settings or the limited number of beds regionally, we were concerned that this site would be overwhelmed, and that we would be in the unfortunate and unimaginable point of view of or position of having to turn people away. We were not in that position, thank goodness. And so that I wanted to make sure that the council had the briefing on this. And so we were obviously, with regard to the single digits in regard to the folks that we were helping in the last night, as we started getting the temperature up for Sunday night going into Monday night, that's when we did utilize the hotel setting. Sarah, did I just say everything you just said in a different way? Sorry. Otherwise known as Tuesday. Anything else, Sarah, on that point, or any questions, council? Let's have Sarah first. Anything else?
No,
okay.
I would. The only thing that I would really add is just really strong appreciation for Catholic Community Services and Public Health. I don't think I had mentioned Public Health of Seattle-King County. They came out and did a site visit early on in this planning process in the fall so that we could be prepared. And just a group effort. Really appreciate everyone who assisted.
Yeah, exactly. We just need to, I know where the council's heart is, to make sure that, and where our community is as well, to make sure that we don't have any loss of life, and especially when they got way down, and especially even as the council president and I were speaking or communicating over the weekend, that even when it's in the mid to higher 30s going into low 40s, it's still unacceptably cold, and we're going to have to work through that. Councilmember Josefa Dawson, I see your hand up.
You did answer that question just now. It's still cold. So what do we do? But Sarah, my question is, I was a little surprised at the low turnout of people who utilized the program. Is it an issue of outreach, or there was no need? What do you think?
Well, I would say it is not an issue of no need, and I wouldn't say outreach either. So last year was the first year for city-activated severe weather shelter. And with that, the majority of participants were connected to the shelter by CCS and the day center. And this year, it's just a different conversation. I mean, we've spent, and this is, again, conjecture, but we've spent 11 months telling individuals experiencing homelessness reduce exposure in congregate settings. And I think that is a factor in this, that when we look to a severe weather shelter that is a congregate setting, they're smart individuals in making decisions that balance that pandemic and the cold weather. And it wasn't as severe as some other settings where we had either a longer duration or colder temps. It was a lot of snow all at once, but probably relatively mild in terms of temperature. So there were resources available, not through the city, but through others in staying out and being safe. So looking at additional supplies that could support somebody being as safe as possible on the street during the weather event. And I think that might have played into this as well.
So you believe they were sheltered, at least, is my understanding, right?
I wouldn't say sheltered. I would say that we likely still had people on the streets. But I do believe that there were supplies that were given in other venues to do so safely, whether that's blankets and additional materials that they could stay as warm as possible.
Thank you. And thank you for your hard work. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Council President Honda. Susan, we can't hear you. So.
We can't hear you.
Oh, stuff. Okay, I'll start from the top. I'd like to thank Sarah and the city staff, because I know this process of getting to the shelter this year took a lot of time and a lot of work, since we are in different times and we have to keep everyone safe. I was concerned that we didn't have a place in the daytime for folks to go. The day center isn't open on weekends, and if this happens again, hopefully it won't happen again this year, but maybe next winter, and it's a weekend, that we can keep the community center open as a warming spot also for the daytime, because it was pretty darn cold and wet during the daytime too. So, but thank you so much. I'm glad that there is a safe, warm spot for people to go to rest and to sleep. And thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And in response to in the issue about what we were talking about what happens when we get into the upper 30s that doesn't hit or doesn't qualify under our policy in regard to emergency activation. Actually, Brian Davis and I went round and round about that, because I was actually, our first night of activation was actually 2 degrees higher before that actual policy. And if we're within a couple of degrees, we and I believe strongly we need to do it. The issue, I just want to I want council to know, in that once you start getting even a few degrees above that, let's go 5 or 6 degrees, it becomes an issue with regard to whether CCS will staff it and whether they'll have the people there. And so I want you to know that once I sent you that email, there was quite an internal discussion about whether we could get CCS to do that. And we'll make sure that we have those conversations about, that gradient, or that sort of the gray area between, clearly where the threshold has not been met. But when we start getting, close enough for what I call close enough for horseshoes, where it's like, what's the difference between 34 and 32 degrees? It's freezing, in all practicality. And then you get wind chill, as the council president was talking about over the weekend. And so it's something that's why I do think that we probably need to, and I mentioned in an email over the weekend to council, that we need to be thinking about a permanent shelter. The location and the manner in which we do that will be ultimately up to the council. And I want to assure council that no decisions have been met. There's some discussions about, at least in the short term, that we're utilizing Red Line Hotel because of their working relationship with King County, and because we were preparing to use that in this emergency setting for emergency cold weather. And we did actually end up using it, sent a few folks there. But I want to assure council that there is, we're going to include you in that process because you're the policy makers. And so I think we are, and one of the things I want to make sure that I explain this to folks, that because we are freeing up CDBG money that was going to service the Section 108 loan for the PAC, which we can no longer do because of the situation at that property. That means we're going to have an income stream available to us, likely about $400,000 a year. That is going to be presented to the Human Services Commission in March. Actually, no, on this month, later this month, and then to the full city, and then to council committee, I believe on the 9th of March, and then on the 16th of March, it'll come before council for approval of modification of the human services work plan. So I just want to make sure that we're going to have conversations about how best to utilize those human services dollars. It's going to come before the commission, council committee, and then the full council through the normal course of business. Any questions about that piece?
Thank you, Mayor, because I know I've talked about a shelter for many, many, many years, and I was really grateful we had a place for families to be this weekend, because we would have been having different conversations if we had families out in it. So, but we're a big city, and we need to have someplace as a shelter. So thank you.
It's time. Yes. Yeah, I believe that, and thank you. Okay, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mayor Farrell. I was going to say Mr. Farrell, but Mayor Farrell. And that's, I think you just said something that was really critical, which is it's time to really address this wholeheartedly, not half-heartedly. And I think it's going to really take a community-wide conversation. And that's going to be one of my expectations is let's get feedback and concerns. Let's get it on the table. And as we're going through this process and building this effort up, let's take that into account. So that's one thing I'll be kind of focused on and looking forward to working with Sarah, your office, and with my colleagues on the council and the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that council's got big hearts. And, you're great servants of the public, and that's why we've been striving to keep you informed of this. And as you prepare for those discussions, obviously, we all recognize that homeless sheltering is on a continuum, and the very what we were talking about right now is just the lowest threshold of when it gets freezing in the emergency cold weather shelter. The fusion shelter for the families is actually a couple of ways down the spectrum in regard to more transitional housing. And so probably a little bit before that, we'll talk about what our needs are in regard to the spectrum, about where people find themselves on a night per night basis. And I think that we need to, where we ultimately come across in regard to service delivery and availability is in our ability for staffing. And I think that's really something we need to be thinking, not just about brick and mortar, but what does it look like to be able to serve those folks and be able to turn on a dime. And so that's what we're going to be working on. Okay, so thank you. State of the City address is on, that's next Thursday, the 25th, February 25th at 6 p.m. Council, I'd love for you to be there. And it's going to be on Channel 21, Facebook, Facebook Live, and also YouTube. So that's 6 p.m. Next Thursday. We have also our COVID-19 update. Oh, you know what I forgot to do with regard to the cold weather? EJ, could you talk a little bit about the excellent work that your team and the Parks Department staff did in regard to plowing and explain the picture behind you, please?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of Council, and Council President. So Friday the 12th, we went to 24-hour operations through the weekend, through Monday. And the picture you see behind us is the north end of Pack Highway with 5 plows on the entire road. So we, in conjunction with the police department, they were nice enough to help us with some traffic control, are basically pushing the snow all the way across the road in one pass. So this is a super efficient way to clear the entire road for the public. It obviously creates an inconvenience for a short period of time while we do it. But as opposed to pushing it into oncoming traffic or into a lane, we plow train. So it's always super impressive. And the plows are stacked. So basically the second plow is at the back of the first truck, and then the third plow is at the back of the second truck, etc. So it actually takes a great deal of skill for our staff to be able to do this too without running into each other. But they're all very good. They've been doing it for a long time. So over the course of the weekend, we traveled with the plows down, according to our GPS tracking software, 4,048 miles of plowing.
Wow.
Over the course of 72 hours, and applied 320 tons of anti-icing materials. So it was a long weekend, to be brutally honest with you. But I'm very proud of our staff and the level of effort and professionalism that they put into this. And the other thing I'll throw out there is the Eyes on Federal Way app was a big win for this. It provided a great way for residents and to communicate with us, and for us to see things in real time, as well as we saw in a couple different instances where one person would report something and then other people would actually chime in, kind of in I'll call it the chat feature for lack of a better term, but in the comments. So it proved to be a very valuable communication tool with the public during this event. So it was good. We're working on resetting everything. We're not obviously out of winter yet. Hopefully we're done with the snow plows, but we're not going to put them away just yet. So we are working on getting everything cleaned up and ready to go again in case we have to.
Very good. Great job. And great job to, I know we had our public works crews, we had the parks crews out. And in parks, we actually had Chef Scott actually preparing meals. Could you tell us about the shifts and how they were able to get the meals and how that worked?
Yeah. So when we roll into a 24-hour operation, the parks maintenance staff effectively becomes part of public works, and we operate as one crew on 12-hour shifts. So our shifts go midnight to noon, and then shift 2 is noon to midnight. And so it's long days, and a couple of us get to just get called 24 hours a day. But with COVID, historically what we've done is for breakfast and dinner, we have sent all of the crews to a local restaurant to support our community. But with COVID this year, that wasn't really an option. We can't send 30 people to one restaurant at the same time and tell them go sit inside and eat breakfast or go inside and eat dinner. So Chef Scott from Dumas Bay was nice enough to work with Brian Hoffman at the PAC to be able to use the kitchen there. And he made the meals for both the breakfast and dinner for all of our staff. So 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. for 3 days straight, he had prepared meals that our crew could basically go up to the loading dock at the back door and get effectively a to-go container to be able to eat in their trucks. So it worked out really well, and I can tell you the food was really good too. So.
That's great. That was an all hands on deck. Let's give him a big round of applause. Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now going on to, we've got Ray Gross, our emergency manager, regarding the COVID-19 update. Ray?
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, Council members. Tonight, I'm going to give you an update on the COVID-19. See if I can share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay.
You've got kind of a split screen though. You've got two.
So cancel out of your share screen there, and we'll redo it. And then share screen. Go to your share screen again.
Jason's working with him right now.
Okay.
And let's go to the presentation screen, which is this guy right there. Yep, and then share that one. And everyone should be seeing your presentation.
Here we go.
So you can
we got it.
Perfect. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
I'll get out of here.
Okay. So these are the numbers for the COVID-19 vaccines. One thing I want to draw attention to is the vast difference between those who have the second dose and the first dose. At the federal government level, they have provided the states first time a 3-week advanced distribution of the vaccine, what they can expect. That helps the states do some advanced planning. And what Washington State Department of Health has decided to do is to use these extra amount of doses that we'll be getting to catch up on the second dose administered. So according to this 3-week plan, this week, Washington State should get about 207,000 doses. That's about 100,000 more doses than last week. And then next week, they're projected to deliver to Washington State about 240,000 and some change in doses. So that's going to be a pretty significant help, as that's, I want to say, the vaccine amounts is kind of the anchor as to the delay of getting these shots out. There was a question last presentation about infrastructure. The infrastructure to deliver the vaccines is there. It's just the vaccine is not, but that will be getting addressed. As far as the Washington State goal of reaching 45,000 doses per day in people's arms, we're about halfway, a little over half of achieving that 45,000 per day goal. Right now, the 7-day average statewide is about 26,761 doses delivered per day to a person. Overall, that's pretty good. And some of the more recent meetings I've attended, either with Seattle Public Health or Washington State Department of Health, they've been talking about some of the, I wouldn't call them roadblocks, but obstacles. And I want to say the top 3 is no centralized appointment process. Every place that seems to give vaccine has its own appointment making system. And so that was number 1. Second on that list is communications and community outreach. I attended a meeting this morning, and I want to say that was the bulk of the conversation this morning, was how to improve community outreach and communications to the public. Then lastly is just the supply of vaccine. Every week it's getting better and a little more stable, and hopefully after the week of February 21st, both the amount and the stableness of that only gets better. Again, this is the phase schedule. We are currently in phase 1B, tier 1. I would say projection wise, we'll probably get into tier 1B or phase 1B, tier 2, still on schedule for probably early spring. But in that meeting this morning, they also discussed that phase 1B, tier 2 and beyond are being reviewed, so they may get updated from what you're looking at presently. On this slide, it kind of gives you a glimpse as to the current vaccines that are out there, as well as locations for phase 1B, tier 1. So for health clinics, we have CMAR. Long-term care facilities, that's Walgreens and CVS. That's a federal program. So vaccines that go through that program do not count against the state allocation. Here in King County does provide additional support to long-term care facilities as far as pop-up clinics as well as the mobile teams, but I'll talk about them here in a second. Hospitals, obviously we have St. Francis. Pop-up clinics and mobile teams. King County Public Health has, I want to say, 13 designated mobile teams. That's either partnerships with local fire departments and King County Seattle Public Health. And the idea is for these 13 mobile teams to start at the adult family homes and do vaccinations and work their way up, while the Walgreens and CVS work from the top, the skilled nursing facilities, and work their way down. They are also kind of involved with the strike or the mobile teams doing using Meals on Wheels as far as finding people that are eligible for vaccination that are not in an adult family home. They're on their own or they can't leave their home. So I thought that was kind of an interesting approach. The last area is the high volume sites, and the current concern with those is just the unstable supply of vaccine presently. And like I said, hopefully as things progress through the weeks, the delivery vaccine becomes more stable and a higher quantity, and these high volume sites will start proving their worth. At the King County level and city of Seattle, there's work going on right now that are looking at high volume sites. Once they reach full capacity, could easily do 20,000 to 25,000, if not more, vaccines a day. The big hindrance right now is the supply of vaccine. We have the Performing Arts Center and the Federal Way Community Center. King County is still interested in the PAC. There's discussions going on around that, as well as Federal Way Community Center still plans to be used by St. Francis. They're just, both of them are still a little concerned about supply of vaccine. There are others, I want to say Redmond had a high volume site go up, the Kent and Auburn ones go up, and there'll be other ones, I'd say in the next week or two, that'll be either announced or in the final stages of opening up. Another program that the federal government started is direct delivery to established pharmacies. This does not go through the state or the county. It goes directly to the pharmacy here in Washington State and in Federal Way. Costco, Fred Meyer's on 21st Avenue, and all 170 or so Safeways are all part of this program. Each of these businesses has their own process of getting an appointment. And right now it's kind of limited as to the amount of vaccine. But if the whole intent is to get COVID vaccine as common as the flu vaccine, this is how you do it. Also, some communities have no other provider of the COVID vaccine available. So Costco, Fred Meyer, Safeway, Albertsons, QFC, they're that community's only near pharmacy. Okay. Going into the vaccines, we all know about Pfizer, Moderna. Johnson & Johnson applied for an emergency use authorization back on February 4th. The typical process takes about a week of review, and then the other two got approved within a week, and then about another week, and vaccines started going out. Johnson & Johnson seems to be a little slower process. Reason being is Johnson & Johnson is not an mRNA vaccine. It's a viral vector vaccine, which includes parts of actual COVID in it. So it's probably taking longer for that reason. And then there is AstraZeneca. I just want to keep bringing this up, that AstraZeneca vaccine has been approved in the UK, where the UK variant is, and AstraZeneca has proven to be very effective against the UK variant. Another thing about Moderna is in Southern Africa, they've pretty much stopped giving Moderna to those that have the South African variant of COVID. It's just been found not to be very effective, whereas the other ones down there have been. And then lastly, in the lower left corner is the findyourphasewa.org, as well as the two phone lines to call in the event that internet access is not available. And then if you're looking at Costco, Fred Meyer, Safeway, any of those other venues, you need to look up their web pages to follow their process. So Washington State Department of Health, as of this Monday, all regions in Washington State have been approved to move to phase 2. As far as I'm aware, and from this meeting this morning, there's no guidance as of yet, or at least released, about what this phase 3 or what the matrix looks like to obtain phase 3 or whatever the next step is. I know there's a meeting tomorrow at the state level. Hopefully those that attended the morning meeting will bring it up and something comes to light. And lastly is kind of where we are as far as the actual COVID-19 virus. These are the numbers for the city of Federal Way as of yesterday. And at the city level, the county level, the state level, and the feds, there's been a pretty significant trend downward in positive cases, new positive cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. These numbers here are overall good numbers. It kind of puts us back where we were in August in the second wave. And I'll just leave it at that. This far corner here is the column of what I always put as the 50 years old or older, just to give some perspective, because that's the concerning age and older that seems to be disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. Just making sure I'm hitting everything. As far as median age, as far as deaths, median age is 81 years old. At the national level, it's 79. At the very bottom, I kind of have the numbers for the variants. I want to happily say these variants have not followed even the most conservative forecast for where we might be right now if any one of those forecasts proved accurate. The UK variant is still leading the race here. It's in 40 states. There's almost 1,200 cases. It's the only variant that I'm aware of that's in Washington State, with cases in King County. The South African variant, 17 cases in 8 states. It seems to be running a little faster as far as its case climb, but it's still not doubling as fast as they said it was. And then Brazil, pretty much stable at 3 cases. That's pretty much when they first detected it where it is, and it's still in the same 2 states. So, and lastly, I want to say the highest one-day new positive cases for Federal Way was on December 2nd, 2020, and that was 102 cases. Since then, it has been a pretty steady downward trend as far as new cases, which then trickles to lower hospitalizations and lower deaths. The last thing I want to bring to your attention is, I want to say mid-December till now, we've had a steady about one a day, one every other day thereabout of deaths. Hopefully this is the week that kind of slows down and eventually stops. With that, I believe that's the end of my presentation. I'll take any questions.
I will. Councilmember Asafa Dawson and Council President Honda.
Thank you, Ray. So based on your report around efficacy, like the South Africa variant, does it make sense to be picky or to choose which vaccine to take then? Like if Moderna doesn't work, can I pick and choose which vaccination I want to do? Does that even make sense? Do we just still go based on what's available?
I'd say right now it's probably based on what's available, but ideally once supply is adequate, and if they're able to determine that you have the South African variant, yeah, I would hope you're able to pick either Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson if it gets approved. But if Moderna is the only one there, the South African variant that we have here may not be as completely the same as what they have in the South African region, where that variant is apparently stronger. But hopefully, as we get more vaccine, and if they're able to detect it in individual samples after testing, I would hope that you'd have the availability to decide which vaccine to use.
Okay, and I have another. Thank you so much. And my other question is, if you test positive, do you wait before you take the vaccine, or how does that even work?
If you test positive and are eligible for the vaccine now, yeah, I would make that appointment as soon as possible.
So, okay, so you don't wait till it clears, or?
I would imagine that'd be up to a healthcare. I would imagine that decision would be up to a healthcare provider about whether.
Okay,
I would imagine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Council President Honda.
Thank you. I have two questions, Ray. Are we seeing less people being tested in the South King County area? And have all of our extended care facilities in Federal Way been, have they all been immunized so far? Have they gotten the vaccine?
Okay, so your first question.
Yeah, are less people being tested?
Yes, they are. The last time I presented, it was about a 30% drop. And the last time I checked early last week, there's another 10% drop. And I want to say a lot of that is because most of the travel holidays are over and they're not using airlines, which required a negative test. But yes, that's accurate. The testing has dropped, which I want to say is a part of why we're seeing a downward trend. As far as your second question about the long-term care facilities, I know the skilled nursing, a majority of them have been contacted and have received at least one dose. A majority of them in King County, I believe, is in that situation.
I actually have some helpful information on this. During the briefing this morning that the Sound Cities Association put on with Susie Levy, the Board of Health Administrator, she went through quite a number of statistics and numbers about where we're at. And I wrote down as much of this as I could, but 42, in regard to the 300,000 doses roughly that have been that have been done in King County with the ages 65 to 74, this is countywide. 42.5% have received at least a first dose. 75 and older, this is countywide now, 75 and older are at 47.4%. Then taking a look at the three cities of Auburn, Kent, and Federal Way, 65 plus is 30% has received at least one dose, and 75 and older is 35%. So as you could see there from vaccination levels, the cities of Auburn, Kent, and Federal Way are trailing percentage-wise fairly significantly by about 10 points from other areas of the county. I would note as well that it is interesting that around December 5th, we were seeing county daily averages of 771 positive tests. That was the high mark of December 5. By the time we get to this week, or I think daily cases now, the most recent from this week is 153 daily new cases. So you could see a significant reduction countywide. In the past 14 days countywide, 141 per 100,000. And they were experiencing 2 deaths per day countywide. So, and they did say that the highest rates of infection were in the South King County cities of Auburn, Kent, and Federal Way. When in the past 2 weeks, 79 hospitalizations. So that gives you just a flavor of, and I know that Councilmember Asefa Dawson was on that call. Anyway, those are some, unfortunately that is, it does appear to be a disparity, but I would note that they have 13 mobile teams out in the field, and many of those are going to adult family homes.
Mayor?
Countywide. Yeah.
I joined the call late because I was at skateboard and the meetings coincided about the same time. Did Susie give a reason as to why South King County has 10% less of our seniors being vaccinated?
I didn't hear it. I did not hear one. Lydia, did you hear that? Ray, you were on the call, right?
Yes. It wasn't stated in the call, but the federal government is kind of the lead in that, and they don't report to the states as far as what has been done to the long-term care facilities. And the numbers provided there is the assistance, and the numbers that were provided in the morning meeting, that's what King County and Washington State has done. So there's probably a little buffer there, but I wouldn't say it's over the top. The federal numbers, long-term care facility, as far as first dose, 85,477. Second dose, 26,791. That's from the federal government. So that's not a lot.
I'll ask tomorrow at the Board of Health meeting when we have our update, because we have the most cases. We should certainly have the most people getting vaccinated. So,
yeah.
Can I add one more thing, please?
Yeah, of course.
Can you also ask about vaccines that are being wasted? If we have a high number of that, please.
They actually do. We don't even have to ask that because they bring that up at every time we have a meeting, because they know someone's going to ask. So I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Actually, if you, Council President, if you want to do like a little summary after that meeting, and then I could push it out to the whole. We could push it out to the whole council, or you can, however you want to do that.
Sure.
We're here to help.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor?
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that information. I was just wondering, in terms of the three cities, Auburn, Kent, and Federal, that lag and behind about 10% of the number of people get the vaccine. I wonder, is this because of these three cities have higher concentration of people of colors? I don't know that for the fact, but if somebody can ask that question with public health official, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and
I'll add it to my list.
Yeah, certainly it's a lower economic strata, which would go hand in hand with BIPOC communities. So let's drill down on that, and so we need to make sure that South King County is getting a chair. I remain concerned that in light of this, we've offered up the Performing Arts and Event Center. I was really surprised they only have 2 sites, one in Kent, one in Auburn. So it seems like they need to step that up. So, okay, well we'll await your report. Thank you, Council President.
Actually, the meeting's Thursday, not tomorrow. I don't know why I said tomorrow, but it's on Thursday.
Okay, that sounds good. As soon as we get it, we'll either you can put it out or we'll put it out. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item on the Mayor's Emerging Issues and Report, which is a legislative update. Steve McNay, our Communications and Government Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Well, we have some good news on the legislative front. Let's start with the federal agenda. Bill Vedino is going to be helping out with this slide. We had an interesting situation in Congress where, with the 50-50 tie, senators could not agree to an organizing resolution. So for the first 3 weeks of the Biden administration, you had the Republicans running committees, even though the Republicans were in the minority with the vote of the vice president. So that has now been agreed upon. There's now an organizing resolution. It's kind of a long story, but it surrounded around the filibuster and the use of that or the elimination of that. With the organizing resolution met, the president introduced a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. Some really good parts about that package. It includes more funding for vaccinations and education. With the prior conversation, there was the discussion on whether or not minority communities were getting less vaccination. There's an educational piece to this funding, and it's outreach to historically marginalized communities, for an education piece on consulting their healthcare providers on whether or not the vaccination should be taken. There's a lot of talk about, hey, we have the vaccination, take the vaccination. Very little talk in the BIPOC community, toward the BIPOC community about, is this the right thing for you to do? So there's an educational piece to the funding that should help with getting information out to the BIPOC community for vaccinations. Out of the COVID relief package, Federal Way is slated to receive $1.7 million in direct funding. There is a direct funding element to this. There is also going to be state and county funding, but municipalities, it was important in this legislation that municipalities get that money directly. For an example, Auburn's around 1.2 million, Kent is around 2.1 million, but we're slated to get, as it stands, 1.7 million to help with business assistance, the outreach, and then the more funding for vaccinations. Next slide, please. So we are moving rapidly with something called Justice Now. This is again on our federal program. Under the Trump administration, there was a Justice Now program that helped for body cameras. That's been retooled. There's money left, and the Biden administration would like to get it out as quickly as possible. So with working with Rick and the team on the federal side, it looks like we can get body cam funding redirected from that program as early as the spring. The total number that we asked for was $1 million, and we believe we can get it. We're going to be looking at a return to earmarks. There's a debate on both sides of that, but it looks like the new Senate majority is returning to that type of a program. We're looking at April, May for earmarks towards the Triangle Project from Senator Murray. Moving forward, next slide, please. Moving forward, ball fields. We're looking at getting some direct funds for ball fields. Ball fields are not subject to the appropriations process under this type of a program. We're looking at early summer before something like that comes up before Congress, but we believe it's something we can also get through an earmark program. And then there's a clean energy bill being introduced in the late spring or summer. That clean energy bill will help us with LED funding to continue the replacement of our street lamps and can be a reimbursement program for the cost of LED. It also is looking at municipal internet enhancements for suburban areas, as well as electric vehicle chargers that the government would like to put throughout municipalities nationwide. As part of the clean energy bill, we're also looking at additional funding to help us with our conversion to electric vehicles for our fleet. So that is the federal update. Moving forward with Olympia. On the state legislative update, this is more of a snapshot. It's not the entirety of our legislative agenda, but this is what we've been working on in the last few weeks. In particular with Senator Wilson, who's been absolutely outstanding, and our two new lobbyists, and Jim Hedrick and Senator Luke Esser, former Senator Esser, just on the ball. And I have to say, as part of this update, EJ's team with Rick and his crew out there with Rhodes have just done a phenomenal job getting the information back to Senator Wilson's office. So Senator Wilson is moving forward as part of the transportation package with $50 million for city center access. That's the 324th access. We're looking at $5 million. These are projects that have been put together already. $5 million for 314th and Highway 99 pedestrian, bicycle, and traffic capacity. $20 million for the widening of 336 and Southwest 340 and 356. $20 million for each of those projects. And then one that is moving forward rapidly is the 373rd and 99 roundabout. That's $3.5 million. Now, there is a lot of debate over the funding mechanisms of the transportation package. There was a poll out on King 5 this morning showing that 52% of residents do not want the increased gas tax. So they're going to have to work that out. But they're moving forward with a large transportation package. The way it was sold to us was that these are the kind of things that come along once every 8 years or so. So try to get in while you can. Senator Wilson's been outstanding in helping us do that. Moving forward, next slide. We're looking at continuing to advocate for state COVID legislation for humanitarian and business relief. A lot of the businesses, as you know, are still impacted. A side note story, I was talking to a business owner in town the other day a restaurant who typically does $200,000 a month. That individual is doing $30,000 a month. It's $170,000 a month loss during COVID. And that's, when you think of those numbers, it's staggering. So we're continuing to monitor with the legislature on any type of humanitarian or business relief, in addition to our COVID package from the federal government. Now, as the federal government funds the state, that'll give us more opportunity down the line. And so we're not really sure yet exactly what the state's going to do. So we'll have to monitor that federal package a lot closer to make sure that we can stay up to date and get our ask in. Next slide, please. Body cameras. The ask is in. We did get some paperwork today from our lobbyists that we'll have to fill out by the 19th. Each caucus has a little bit of a different process for it. So we're working on the paperwork to get that ask in directly. $350,000 for a pilot program. So we're working on that. By the 19th, all that paperwork is due. It should be in sometime by Thursday. Police reform initiatives. There are a lot of police reform initiatives. I'm not going to get into the weeds on all of them as they're moving forward, but I know that Mayor Farrell, Mayor Backus, Mayor Geyer, and Mayor Ralph all sat down with the 30th District State Representative Johnson and had some candid conversations about ensuring there are no unfunded mandates for the city. It's tough with the budget as it is, so we're monitoring those programs closely. There's probably going to be some oversight or accountability initiatives that come out of the legislature with majority support. So we will keep you updated as they move forward. And then as far as, next slide, input and questions. Let's go back real quick. we're following on community programs too, with what our state reps are doing for the Reach Center, and moving forward with that. So we're staying on top of it. Lastly, the ask for extended Wi-Fi hasn't come up yet, but it's something that we have talked to Senator Wilson about. There was a 30th District Town Hall for anyone who was able to log in this weekend. It was a pretty good conversation. So that's where we stand as a snapshot for this week, and we will certainly update you as things change.
Okay, Council. Actually, Steve, can you take down the share? Or
thank you, Bill.
There we go. Councilmember Moore, and then Council President Honda. I see questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor and Steve. Great work, and obviously great work to our delegation in terms of our lobbyists and with our delegation as elected officials. Obviously, I heard you talking about clean energy, clean energy bills. I don't know what to call it, but I believe in our federal agenda, one of the items that I didn't hear you mention, maybe you can talk to it more, is getting funding for to retrofit buildings, city buildings for solar panels, perhaps starting with the PAC, as I've advocated for before. Any discussions on that? I bet you anything it's in there somewhere. So thank you, Steve.
That's a great question, Councilmember. Thank you. I think we get our minds kind of wrapped around the way the process works in Olympia, where there's a truncated session. Even though this is a long session, Representative Kochemar certainly knows this better than all of us. You get down there, you get in, you get your work done, and then you call sine die and go home. Congress is year-round. And so right now the focus is the COVID relief package for the Biden administration. But there will be an environmental justice and a clean energy bill that's put forward sometime in the summer. All of that will be in there. We'll continue the ask. Some of these things that we talked about now are because the appropriations process through the budget is going to be coming up a little bit sooner than some of the other bills. And so we're kind of going along the flow of Congress. But as that comes up, that's something that we'll certainly advocate for and something the council has asked for. And so we'll stay on top of it. But again, it's a longer process on the federal level than it is on the state level.
Okay. Council President Honda.
Thank you. At Skateboard this morning, we had a discussion on projects, transportation projects, and the gas tax. And I could say that pretty much all of the council members there, and it was all of the transportation boards, the 3 transportation boards in King County are meeting together now. So it's all of King County. Were not supportive of an increased gas tax. But the slide that you had on our road projects, is that the priority of which we want the funding to come in?
It is not necessarily a priority. No. What we did is we resubmitted last year's or last session's asks, and the City Center Access project was our number 1 that we pushed forward. And then EJ, are you still on here?
I am.
There he is. EJ can talk to it a little bit more about our packages moving forward with the 99 and 373rd and some of the others. As far as the priority of shovel ready, we were asked to produce shovel ready projects, or as close to shovel ready, or as close to ready to do engineering as possible. And so EJ, I'll let you take it from there.
And before EJ talks, so I do want to say that our 2 lobbyists have been working overtime trying to make sure that we get these both in the Senate and the House. And I want to give a big thank you to EJ and Desiree and Rick Perez for their incredible hard work at filling all these forms out and making sure that the shovel ready projects could get into the budget ready process. So it's been a lot of work to get it to that point, and as well as coordination with Steve as well. Council President Honda.
I had one last question after EJ talks about what he was going to talk about.
That's right, EJ. Sorry.
So as Steve said, city center access is the #1 priority that matches what council previously approved, and the ranked order that they were submitted. And I don't have the list in front of me that Steve shared with you on my screen, but they are in the same priority order as what is in the TIP that was previously approved by council. So they're ranked exactly the same order as that to be consistent. So I don't have the list. I don't have the list in front of me of all the projects. I don't want to miss one, but they're in that same order as what council previously approved.
The roundabout at 373rd was the last project listed, and I would think that because it's far less money needed for that might have been moved up a little bit, because we certainly need to get something done there. But,
so city center access is #1. That one does rank above the connection to Browns Point, which is a combination of 352nd, 356th. So you are correct on that.
My last question was, Sound Transit is asking for more funding because of their huge shortfall. And do you know what discussions are going on at the state level or at even the federal level to get them more funding? Have you heard?
We'll get back to you on that, Councilmember. We've had some preliminary discussions, but I'd rather reach out to our two lobbyists first and get you a concise answer rather than just trying to go off the vest.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Kretschmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Steve. It's really wonderful to hear about the lobby agendas for both federal and state. I'm wondering, I know a lot of times if we're going to have a state project that we leverage that against federal money, are we combining the two?
That's a great question, Councilmember. Yes, in fact, we are when it comes to the Triangle Project. The Triangle Project is obviously a WashDOT project. And so what we're looking at doing is producing a letter of support from the council and the mayor to sign on as that moves forward for Triangle on the federal level. As EJ pointed out to me a couple weeks back, WashDOT's certainly going to come asking for our contribution as well from a city. But the initial stage, it makes a lot of sense for us to sign on with WashDOT and have our lobbyists talk to Senator Murray about that, as well as Senator Cantwell, but Senator Murray in particular, given her leadership position and familiarity with the project. So yes, we will be producing some sort of either a letter or a process for the city to back WashDOT and the Triangle Ask.
Cool. It's really interesting for me to see us starting to talk about other projects other than transportation, because we've always been able to get transportation money in some form or another. But it's really, for me, it's interesting to see that we're able to talk about ball fields in our federal legislation and, for AstroTurf. And I'm wondering if we can combine that with, I know that the federal government is talking about low-income communities. I don't know if we are at that level or not, but I'm wondering if we could use that as a bargaining point for us to come up higher on their list. I'm not sure, but it's something worth looking at. But for me, this is really, really interesting. And I just want to point out, and thank you very much for the update. I want to point out, too, that when I was in the legislature, I was fortunate to be part of the group that was able to get the money for the boardwalk to be redone after a horrible storm. But I understand that in this budget that there is money being put in there for, because that's part of the 30th district, although it's not part of the city of Federway, that the pier, the redundant fishing pier, is going to be redone, which I think is really important to our community, because we have a lot of people, especially people, I think they go down there to fish, and I think it's more than just fishing for fun. I think it's fishing to feed their families, but it also is a good thing because it reduces crime. We had a terrible incident down there just a couple nights ago where somebody was going down at 6 a.m. in the morning to go scuba diving and was attacked. And I think the more people we have down there, the more eyes on what's going on is really good. So anyway, I'm happy to see that the fishing pier is going to be reconstructed so that we can use that again. So thank you very much, Mayor and Steve, for your hard work on this. And really interesting. I'm really, really happy that we're involved in both federal and state. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, I see no further questions. That is the conclusion of the mayor's emerging issues and report. We'll now turn to council committee reports. The Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee, which is Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you, Mayor. We had our meeting on March 9th at 5 o'clock. We only had 3 items on the agenda, one of which is on this agenda, which is the item J. It's the 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission work plan. And I'll just, since it's on the consent agenda, I'll just simply point out that of the Parks and Recreation Commission work plan, there's some interesting projects that our commissioners are going to be looking at, one of which is the master plan for the Still Lake Park, master plan for Brook Lake Community Center, and a master plan for Lakota Park. So those are some interesting projects that we're going to be working on over the next year. And I think it's interesting for the community to know that we're moving forward with planning for neighborhood parks as well as for, the things that we always talk about, like the downtown and our transportation projects. Thank you very much, Mayor. Our next meeting will be March 9th at 5 p.m.
All right, thank you very much. And our next is the Land Use and Transportation Committee, Councilmember Veruso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have for consent agenda today items B through H, so I'll keep this short. Our first reading that we have also bringing to Council is Council Bill number 798, speed limit ordinance amendment that we've talked about before at Lakota School. And our next meeting will be March 1st at 5 o'clock and probably be on Zoom. That's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, February 23rd at 5 p.m. on Zoom. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, Councilmember Asafa Dawson.
Yes, Mayor, and I don't have anything to report. Our next meeting is February 10th at 10 o'clock.
All right, thank you. The Public Issues Committee of our Sound Cities Association, or what we refer to as the Regional Committees report, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank Council President Honda for attending, along with my colleague and partner, the alternate Councilmember Lydia Asafa-Dawson. Thank you for being there. I'm just going to kind of highlight just a couple of things in the essence of time here. But one tidbit is that 15 bills were introduced into the legislature that were related to police reform. So lots of cities are obviously concerned, and there are a lot of cities are watching that as well. So there were lots of updates on that aspect given by the Association of Washington Cities Government Affairs Director. Next, I wanted to kind of let the council know, because I know it's a topic that we've discussed. Ms. Regina, Council President, how does that, Regina or Regina?
Oh, for the housing?
Yes.
I'll
just say Mrs.
I think
Cannon.
it starts with an R. Yeah. It's a new woman. Yeah.
Yes. She is, thank you. She is now the new CEO of the, I can't, for the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. So she's that. A little bit about her is she is currently the Chief Equity and Impact Officer at the Center of Social Innovation, better known as C4. So I just wanted to kind of state that a little bit. So she'll bring a lot of experience into this, which I do think is interesting. And another one is, let's see here, I'm trying to be organized here. Best starts for kids, something that many organizations have been impacted here in our community through funding, and it's King County Executives, I think one of his hallmark efforts. And so there's going to be an effort to, so the current levy is set to expire by December 31st of 2021. And so they're looking at putting a renewal on the ballot, and it'll be $14 cents per $1,000 assessed property values. And I know that some of my colleagues, regional colleagues, had some concerns because of COVID and jobs and other things. That is this a good time to put this forth? So that's a question that was posed, and there was questions about property values and the 14 cents. So there's just a lot of questions. I know that in the PIC committee, we're going to have a dedicated time to discuss more about the best starts for kids. Happy to keep the council apprised of that. And then one tidbit that's kind of fun, and I'll end it with this, Mr. Mayor, is that I did learn that Shoreline is going to be putting a $30 million park bond. Just found that to be quite interesting. Just wanted to share that out there. So with that, I will end my report, and I'll give it back to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Council President report.
Thank you. So our council retreat is going to be February 27th, which is a Saturday, from 9 to 1. It's going to be on Zoom, and Andrew Ballard will be our facilitator. He's facilitated several of our retreats so far. This is only going to be the first part of what should be 3 retreats for the council this year. And the second and the third retreats, and I don't know in what order these would fall in, but would be a diversity, inclusion, and equity training, which is something we were working on to bring in early 2020, and then COVID happened. We had even interviewed some facilitators for that, and then COVID happened, and the feeling was that training should be held in person and not on Zoom. And of course, in the early days of COVID, which seemed like it was just yesterday, and it was a whole year ago, we were all going no one knew what was going to happen or how long this was going to last. And then the third retreat would hopefully be an in-person retreat where we can work on visioning and that kind of stuff and economic development. So I'm excited. I think we're pretty fortunate that we can do a retreat on Zoom, even though I know that's not our choice. But other councils are doing it and they're making it work, and I know we can too. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, now we've got the most important part of the meeting, which is public comment. And Stephanie, how many do we have?
Hi, Mayor. We have 4 people. The first one we have on the line is Glenn Steele. Then we have Chris Navarrete, who I don't see signed on to the meeting yet, but we'll check again. And then Richard Pearson and Trinice Rogers. So first up should be Glenn Steele. He should be unmuted.
All right. Welcome, Mr. Steele.
Mayor, he's allowed to talk.
Okay.
Oh, there he goes.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Hello? Okay, very
Yes,
good.
hi.
Thank you very much for letting me speak. I'm Glenn Steele. I live in Federal Way, and I'm a healthcare worker at Multicare in Tacoma. And I'm speaking on behalf of the grocery workers here in Federal Way, I suppose, mostly, but nationwide as well, as they are essential workers, and they have been working really hard to make sure the rest of us can be fed and make our meals now that none of the restaurants are really open and everything is people are taking food home to fix at home and eat. But the thing is, they are essential workers, and they do deserve hazard pay. While places like Kroger, which is Fred Meyer, and QFC here near me, where I do my grocery shopping at a number of places, and both of those places are frequent stops for me. But those grocery stores have reaped windfall profits in the millions due to people having to go out and buy groceries, and nobody else is open. They're the only ones that are open, and they deem the grocery workers as essential workers. And those people come into contact with probably hundreds of people a day. Now, me as a healthcare worker, I caught COVID. I think I caught it at the hospital, and I think that we are really good at wearing our personal protective equipment. We have to wear it there, and not only that, they make every patient that comes in has to wear it. And I know at some of these grocery stores, the grocery stores can't go around policing everybody, so you have people running around that don't believe in masks, and these poor grocery workers are coming into contact with them and could very possibly take this coronavirus home and spread it around their family without even knowing it, because they're frontline workers. So they don't make very much anyway. They're putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that we're taken care of. So I really think that they deserve some consideration here. During the pandemic, the grocery store operators have reaped millions of dollars in windfall profits, and the pandemic has gotten better here because of the opening up of different parts of the state, which is really good. But now we have this variant virus running around, and they could catch that just as easily as well. Like I said, because I don't think that the grocery stores are running around policing everybody so that they have a mask on and they're wearing some kind of PPE. So again, I just think they definitely need the consideration of this, at least while everybody is mandated to wear a mask and the virus is still hovering around out there. I think the grocery store workers, first of all, they have my admiration for showing up to work every day, but they deserve consideration of hazard pay. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Next up is Chris Navarrete. I believe he signed on as Sarah Carter. We saw a hand raised, so I believe that might be the same person. We'll go ahead and try that.
Yes, I did. Hold on. I'm using my wife's computer. I just wanted to start by saying thank you guys for this time. I've mentioned this a few times through my union and various other places. For me, it's a fear. I go to work every day fearful of what I could bring home to my wife and my kids. I'm all for hazard pay. I understand what hazard pay could do to the economy. Understand what it could do to raise prices going up. I'm just more in the sense of I don't feel like we're doing everything we can to protect ourselves at work. I just I'm scared. And it's hard for me to say that because I don't scare very easily about things, but waking up every day to go to work is a scary thing now. And I'm not the only one that feels this. I have lots of employees that or people that I work with that feel the same way, and they don't say anything. But for me, I'm scared not anymore for myself, but because I fear that I can bring something home to my family. And for me, I just feel like, in my personal opinion, I feel like we're not doing enough to protect retail workers in any aspect, not just grocery store, but for people that work in grocery, we don't have a choice. If we don't go to work, we don't make money, and if we don't make money, then we can't take care of ourselves or our family. And I've seen more times than none of people walking into the store without a mask, and bottom line is I'm just tired of feeling scared. I'm tired of waking up every day being fearful of my life, and that's how it feels, is I'm fearful of my life. Like I said, I understand what raising the giving us hazard pay, what it could do to economy, what it could do to just in general, what it could do for the community. But I love and enjoy working in Federal Way. I love and enjoy being in Federal Way. There's nothing that I can say ill about Federal Way. I love it. I feel like we could do more to protect people that work in retail, protect people that work in the hospitals, protect first responders. I just feel like we could do more. And I appreciate all the time that I've gotten, and I'm grateful that I have this time to say what I needed to say. I apologize. I'm not a very good speaker when it comes to these kind of things, but I just needed to let everyone know that this is how I feel. And like I said, I am all for hazard pay, but honestly, the main goal here is just to get it out there that we are out there fearful for our lives. We go out there every single day to do our jobs, not only because we don't have a choice, but because people need groceries and people need to be able to get their food. And I understand that. But also at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of people that they don't care about us because they come into the store without a mask, or they have it underneath their chin, or they don't have it completely covered right. And I don't want to say that they're selfish, but they are. It's very selfish. We're in a time and in a space in life where we can't afford to be selfish anymore. We need to all look out for each other. We're all humans. We're all stuck on this rock doing the same things every single day, and we need to be there for each other, regardless of our political views, regardless of our race, regardless of our sex, regardless of what it is. We're humans. We all bleed the same. We all are made up the same way. And I just feel like we could do more. And I'm not saying that the city of Federal Way hasn't done more. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we could do more for not only retail workers, but for first responders, for hospitals, for police officers, for everybody. Everybody just needs to do a little more. But yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm just tired of being afraid. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are afraid too, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm tired of being afraid. But as like I said, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate being able to voice my opinion, and I just wanted to say thank you guys.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I think many of us are scared, and we're going to get through this together. So thank you very much. I think you hit the nail on the head about bringing it home. That's what we all fear. So thank you so much. Okay. Next comment.
Next, Mayor, we have Richard Pearson on the line. We'll go ahead and unmute him.
He's connected 2 times, so I'm going to allow one, and we'll see if that's the correct one versus the other. Richard, Pearson, can you unmute yourself?
Richard, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
There you go. Okay. Okay, welcome.
Oh, getting some feedback. Should I try the other one?
I'm actually on the phone. I'm on the phone as well as the internet.
Okay. You have to turn off one. Do you want to talk on the phone or the internet one?
Let's just turn off the internet and I'll talk on this phone.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Okay. Now he's on the phone. Now, Richard, you're on the phone. Wonder if he has to *6.
Or he does. It should have given him the instructions to follow. There you go. Richard, you're going to have to disconnect one. So I'm going to go ahead and kick. I'm going to remove you from the meeting on the
computer.
Yep. Okay. Now I can unmute him.
Okay. Richard, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can now. Yes, you're coming in just perfect.
Thank you. I'll have to play my senior citizen card there. So I've been on a lot of Zoom meetings, but this one's a little different. Okay, Honorable Mayor, respected President, dedicated council members, staff, and community members. It has been almost 2 years since I made a presentation to the Federal Way City Council. Since then, many of you are new. Congratulations on your new role and responsibilities. My wife and I have lived here in Federal Way for almost 50 years, working, raising our family, and being involved in the Federal Way community. In recent years, I've been involved with the Save Weyerhaeuser campus's efforts to promote the Federal Way corporate park zone that would preserve a unique landscape in an upzone business park, an asset for the entire community. Tonight, I call your attention to what appears to me to be a clear cut in the corporate park managed forest buffer along Interstate 5 between 336th Street South and State Highway 18. 336th Street is the street that goes under I-5 from Pacific Highway South and enters under the highway onto the corporate park. On January 24th, I asked in an email Community Development Director Brian Davis about how could a clear cut happen. I thought we had an understanding that no significant tree cutting would be done prior to all final permitting that being issued both from the city and the U.S. Corps of Engineers. Mr. Davis replied the next day, January 25, after my query that, quote, "We will investigate," unquote, but I have not seen any communication from the city to date. The clear cut removed approximately 30 significant Douglas fir trees as far as 50 to 75 feet from the property boundary assumed to be the I-5 fence. A pipeline is staked about 6 feet inside of the fence. But of course the cutting goes in as far as 50 to 75 feet. According to the corporate park zone regulations, this boundary should be offset by a 100-foot managed forest buffer. I believe the Director of Community Development does have authority to permit other uses in the managed forest buffer according to corporate park zoning, but Mr. Davis has not offered a zoning changes as an explanation. This issue is vitally important to the citizens of Federal Way that support a green city. It was so important to the city that when your predecessors approved the corporate park zone legislation over 25 years ago in 1994, they wrote in the introductory recitals that the desired outcome was, and I quote, "to develop the property with maximum flexibility, which will ensure optimal development while preserving the unique natural features of the site." I'm impatiently waiting for an email explanation of what appears to me to be a clear cut in the managed forest buffer of the corporate park zone. Respectfully, Richard Pearson.
All right, thank you, Richard. Okay, Brian, are you on the Brian Davis? Are you on the call? Brian. Oh, that's right.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, he's not here this week, so I am, and so I'll just take some notes. And it's Mr. Pearson, I believe, and I'll forward the message to Brian and have him contact him next week when he's back in town.
Okay, that's right. He was here earlier in the day, everybody, for a management team meeting, and we were communicating earlier today. So, okay, thank you, Scott, for your presence, and Mr. Pearson will get you an answer back on that. Okay. All right, next speaker.
Next and the last person I have signed up, Mayor, is Trinice Rogers, and she should be on the line.
Trinice, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Hi there. Hi.
Hi there. Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, and council members. I wanted to speak on the recent passing of Lieutenant Michael Bout. Lieutenant Michael Bout was killed in the line of duty on February 1st, 2021. Lieutenant Bout was one of the original members of the Federal Police Department after the city council created it in 1996. Lieutenant Bout was hired as a patrol officer on November 12, 1996. According to Hancock County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Bout once saved a child's life and was awarded the Life Saving Medal. Hancock County Sheriff Ricky Adams delivered a heartfelt eulogy in which he reflected on the life of Lieutenant Bout, saying he was courageous, acted in a selfless manner, putting the well-being of others first above his own. He was a wonderful man, a great leader, a friend, and most of all, a hero. I was wondering if the city council and the mayor, if you were all planning to do something to honor Lieutenant Bout's memory. In the spirit of Black History Month, I think it would be fitting to honor Lieutenant Bout for his contributions, not to only his profession, but also to the city of Federal Way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Trinice. We did, actually, Chief, would you like to talk about, we had a moment of silence for the officer, and I know that we discussed this at our last meeting, and I know that the police officers wore armbands. Chief, would you like to talk about the steps that we've taken, at least initially?
Yes, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, to honor Lieutenant Michael Boutte. First of all,
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for Ms. Rogers. Thank you very much for recognizing the passing of Lieutenant Boutte. Very much appreciated. One of the first things we did was we communicated internally with all our department members. And secondly, we communicated with the mayor and council about who Lieutenant Boutte was and his passing. To honor him, we wore our mourning band as an agency. We also contacted, we were also worked with the mayor to honor him, to do a story in our local newspaper. And then we signed a department liaison with the Hancock Sheriff's Department, which was Deputy Chief Kyle Sumter. So he was in contact with the agency, worked hand in hand, and we sent some department artifacts from 1996, our badge, patch. So we sent photos. So we participated in that way. Also, our honor guard lowered our city flag to half staff to honor him. And we posted that video with our honor guard on our Facebook page. So those are some of the things that we did. I also spoke with Lieutenant Boutte's daughter, Jessica, spoke to her on a couple of occasions and provided her with some information and had a very good conversation with her. It's a terrible loss. It's we know these things happen in our profession, but when it happens to someone you knew, and he had a very contagious smile, he was a very good person to work with. So it was a terrible loss, but those are some of the things that we did to honor Lieutenant Michael Butte.
Trinice, I wrote a personal letter to his. I wrote a personal letter to his daughter as well.
With all due respect, Lieutenant Butte was essentially a founding son of the city of Federal Way, and I think it's really fitting if we can establish something permanent in his honor, because he essentially was not only I just think it's important that we consider something permanent, whether it be, we named a street after him. We need something permanent because he was, and in all actually, he was a founding son of our police department. And yes, I understand there were things that were in place that were standard for losing an officer, and I know any officer is horrible. That's a horrible experience, but he was a founding officer for our police department. And I think it's really important that we consider moving forward and honoring him, memorializing Lieutenant Butte in a more permanent, more thoughtful, intentional manner. Thank you for your consideration.
All right. Thank you, Trinice.
Thank you.
Okay. Stephanie, was that our last public comment?
Yes, Mayor. I don't have anyone else signed up for the meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. And Trinice will put some thought into that, and I'll talk with the chief. And thank you for that comment. Okay. Consent agenda. These items have gone through committee, and I will read through the items and ask if a council member would want an item pulled. Before I get started, though, Councilmember Bruce, I understand that you've got an item you want pulled.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do. Item H, the Washtenaw Traffic Busters Agreement Update. Staff's request. I'd like to pull that for consideration at a future meeting. Okay.
All right. So H is pulled. I'll go ahead and read the others. Item A are the minutes for the February 2, 2021 regular and special meetings. Item B, 2021 Asphalt Overlay Bid Award. C, Southwest 296 at 14th Slide Restoration Project Acceptance. D, Complete Streets ADA Upgrades Project Acceptance. E, Surface Water Management Vector and Infrastructure Maintenance Services Contract Bid Award. F, Right-of-Way Lease Extension for Mayor Tram portion of 43rd Avenue Southwest. G, Resolution Acceptance of Grant Funding for Transportation Projects, STP, CQ, CMAQ, and HSIP. H has already been pulled, and that was the Washington State DOT Traffic Busters Agreement Update. I is the Elevator Services Contract Award, and J, the 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission Work Plan. Council, are there any other items from A through G and I and J that the council would want to be pulled for separate consideration? Hearing none, Council President Honda, do you have a motion with respect to those items?
Yes. I move approval of items A through G and items I and J.
Second.
For.
All right. There's been a motion for approval and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Those matters pass, and H is held over. All right. Item 6, Human Services Commission appointments. Council President Honda.
Oh, thank you very much. This evening at 5 o'clock, we had interviews for the Human Services Commission, and we were unable to interview all the applicants. And so tonight we will not be making those appointments, but we will interview the other folks at the next council meeting and make those appointments at our next council meeting. So thank you very much to those who have applied. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Item 7, ordinances, first reading. Item A, Council Bill 798, speed limit ordinance amendment. First, we'll have a staff report from Rick Perez, our city traffic engineer. Then we'll open it up for public comment, 3 minutes each. Mr. Perez, the floor is yours. Rick?
Mayor, he's on the meeting. So I think he might just be getting ready. Jason's also heading over to his location as well.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that hiccup. Thankfully, we have IT staff that are on the ready. So yes, tonight we're talking about a speed limit ordinance amendment that I should have brought to you with the prior one in one fell swoop. But in any case, policy question is, should the city council approve an ordinance to reduce the speed limit from 40 to 35 miles per hour on Southwest Dash Point Road between 16th Avenue Southwest and 21st Avenue Southwest? So as you recall, we have this Lakota Safe Routes to School project, and currently to the south and west on Dash Point Road and 21st, the speed limit's 35. It increases to 40 at that intersection and continues that way along Dash Point Road all the way to Pack Highway. As part of this grant application, one of the items of feedback we got from WashDOT was suggesting lowering the speed limit to 35, which we felt we could justify based on the presence of the school in the park and the increased driveway density north of 312th up to 16th Avenue Southwest. And so that's what this ordinance does. It amends the appropriate code section, and again, that reduction due to intensity of turning movements and the school and park frontage. So options considered were to approve the draft ordinance or to do not approve the draft ordinance and provide direction to staff. The mayor's recommendation is to approve it. And so is Land Use and Transportation Committee. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Council, do you have any questions? Councilmember Cefados.
Thank you, Mayor. Isn't Dash Point a state street?
Yes, it is a state highway.
Or is it a city?
Well,
State highway, okay.
It is a state highway. We control that, except for speed limit changes need to be approved by the council before WashDOT will consider it changed.
Okay. And so this recommendation then goes to them, or this approval goes to them, and then they may or may not accept the recommendation then basically, or?
They may choose to reject it, but since it was WashDOT staff that recommended it as part of the grant application, we're pretty confident they're going to approve it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Any other public comment, or excuse me, any other comment from a council member? Questions? All right. Seeing none. Stephanie, do we have any public comment on this?
I don't have anyone signed up, Mayor. No.
Okay. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 798, Speed Limit Ordinance Amendment, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to speed limits, amending Federal Way Revised Code 8.30.040.
Okay. Councilor Barusa, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I move to forward proposed ordinance to the March 2nd, 2021 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the matter passes unanimously. All right, well, on to council reports. It's the second meeting of the month, which means we start at the other end of the dais, and that is Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'll make it very short, and I'll just do a public service announcement, which is this is February, which is Wear Red for Women's Heart Month, which I've been wearing red for Women's Heart Month for years. Well, guess what? I had a problem with heart this month. And after, just to let you know, women are different than men when it comes to the heart issues working. I was part of it. I heard a statistic, 65% of people are not going in for their well checks because of COVID. They don't want to bother staff. Well, I was one of the people who didn't want to bother staff. So I hadn't been in for about a year and a half. And my levels, you have different levels for, to make sure your heart's in good working order. But my calcium level was off the charts. When I say off the charts, it was so off the charts, it wasn't even, there was no register for it. So what it was doing was killing me. And apparently, I have a daughter who's a registered nurse, and she works up at Brown Swedish Hospital, and apparently I had 2 days left before I was going to go into cardiac arrest. And so she got me into the hospital up at Swedish. She's all of 110 pounds, little blonde, but I can tell you she is pushy, and she got me in the right spots at the right time. In fact, the ambulance drivers wanted to know why she was so pushy. I was going to say she was my daughter, but I just said she's an RN. At any rate, so they got me into ICU, and I actually thought the ICU nurse was trying to kill me, but that was just my foggy brain at the time. But after 3 days at Swedish, where they gave me excellent care, my levels are back to normal, but I now am left with a little bit of an enlarged heart, which is called cardiomyopathy. So the only reason I'm telling you all that right now is don't be afraid to go into your healthcare provider, because even though they try to do that, because we did do the online screening with the doctor, it really didn't work. You really have to go in and see them. And so I'm very fortunate. I'm here. I'm vertical. At any rate, so I tell my daughter, this is the 5th person my daughter has saved. She actually saved a scuba diver down at Redondo, and she was honored by our fire department a few years back. But anyway, at any rate, just mention that because, Mr. Mayor, I do want you to go in to see your doctor about your reoccurring cough, because that's an indication of a problem. So I will be on you even more now, because I was surprised at how quickly things can happen. So just to let you all know, this is my PSA for the month. I won't bring it up again, but it's going to take me a little bit to recover, because it was serious. And so I guess we're not going to live forever, but I'm going to live a little bit longer. And so I'm very happy to be part of the group and moving forward. And so thank you for listening to me. And please be sure to go in, and if it's time for you to see your doctor, go in and see them. Thank you.
Here, here. Thank you for the advice, and I know that we've talked about several of those issues, and so thank you very much, and thank you so much for the PSA. Many of us do think that we're just like impervious to some of those things, and we do need to make sure that we see our medical practitioners when we feel like we need to. We need to listen to ourselves. So thank you very much. Okay, and it's great to have you back, Councilmember. All right, Councilmember Moore.
Well, gosh, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure how I can follow up with that. Councilmember Kochmar, you have been on my minds, and I'm sure my colleagues' minds as well. And I hope you know how grateful I am to hear the positive news. And I'm Councilmember Kochmar, I've known you for a long time, and I say this in a loving way that I know you're stubborn, and I'm glad you listen to your family. I really, really am, and I mean that with sincere and love. Okay, and so I'm just glad your daughter, the RN, did what she is trained to do. So thank you for that. Um, yeah, I think I'll keep my report relatively short. So um, I appreciated hearing two members of from the public comments talking about hazard pay. I can certainly empathize with them wholeheartedly, seeing how they're only paid by the hour, especially the comments of Chris. And so, you know, it's something that essential workers should be respected. And and so I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that and just say I understand. And the work they do, quite frankly, is dangerous just because they're out there every single day. Some of them 24/7, some of them 7 hours, 8 hours a day out in public talking to people. So, and you know, Mayor, you and I have talked about this, and I certainly appreciate your efforts with this. I know that you've been um, pushing on this from St. Francis to King County Public Health and opening up more vaccine locations. You and I have talked about that, so I appreciate that. And the fact that we're lagging in our numbers really does illustrate the importance of the PAC opening up as a vaccine spot, along with other places around Federal Way. Um, so whatever I can do, and we just need to kind of all of us work together to send the message to King County that hey, we need to open up these. And I know that it's trickled down. I know it's their decisions affected by other decisions as well. So, but if I can just encourage you to keep pushing for that, I think that'd be really great. Um, which I know you're already doing, Mr. Merritt. So with that, Councilmember Coachmar, I'm really pleased that you're doing better. Keep taking care of yourself. Rest up, and if you need any mochas, let us know. Alert Birdie on. Council President Honda told us what you liked, so let us know if you need that to help. Hopefully that's okay for the heart. I don't know if it is or not, but glad that you're doing well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Kraft.
I just want to start off by saying it's really nice to see that you're doing at least better, Councilmember Kochmar. I know that I saw you on some of the other Zoom meetings, and you were definitely not. I can tell that you're much stronger now, and I just hope for a speedy recovery. And thank you for that PSA, because I think a lot of people out there are avoiding any doctors because they want those doctors to prioritize, the people who we feel like are in more need right now. So thank you for putting that out there. I also just want to say that thank you also to the people who were on public comment today and talking about hazard pay. I want to also say that in watching how the numbers have gone down in the past few months, I am hopeful. I want people to still wear their masks, because just because you got vaccinated doesn't mean that we should stop wearing our masks. That's the current CDC recommendation, that you still wear your masks even if you got vaccinated and even if you've gotten both doses. And the last thing I'll say is that today is Fat Tuesday, and that sort of marks for people who celebrate Catholicism, it marks that tomorrow is Ash Wednesday and then sort of the start of Lent. And I was raised Catholic. Something that I really personally liked about the Lent season is that you're supposed to sort of either give up a vice or add something to make yourself a better person, regardless if you practice Catholicism or not. I've always thought that was a really good thought process to have during this time, but just in general, what can you do to add to better yourself? Or what can you do to reduce any of your vices? And especially where we are in society right now, when we think about how we all can be better at learning more about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And during Black History Month, that we're still in, even though it's the shortest month in the calendar. I think that we all can do something to either better ourselves or let go of something that we may consider as a vice. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything to share really, except to say that welcome back, Councilmember Kochmar, and I'm glad to see you are healthy and you're smiling today. So that's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Baruso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Linda, I congratulate you for standing up and being here today. So thank you for, please take care of yourself. You know, a lot of people, when we get to a certain age, we forget about hydrating ourselves. So it's always important, even though you don't feel like you're hydrated, please drink a lot of water because that's what you need. I'd like to thank EJ, Parks crews, and Public Works folks. If you saw that picture that EJ put up, that does take some skill to do. It's not something you just go out there and do. And, you know, we always talk about heroes and things, but I've always looked at utility folks and public works folks and our grocery workers and the people that deliver our gas and our food as heroes too, because in these times of COVID-19, that's what we need. So I want to wish everyone, I know that in the Asian realm, you know, it's the Lunar New Year. But with the Lunar New Year and COVID-19, I do want to say this. You can celebrate Lunar New Year, but since COVID started, there still has been some anti-Asian discrimination and racism going on. So just in a couple of weeks or last week, you know, there's 4 violent attacks on Asian Americans. A murder to an 84-year-old Thai American in San Francisco. 3 assaults, a 64-year-old Vietnamese American woman in San Jose, 61-year-old Filipino in New York, and a 91-year-old man in Oakland, California, in Chinatown. So whether or not you take a look at this and see that COVID-19 has caused a lot of these things, data has shown, NYPD put it together that since COVID started, since they became tracked, there's been 1,900 assaults on Asian Americans. So just a figure that's out there to let everyone remember that COVID is still here. The variants are coming. Don't let racism cloud your judgment of what people are, what they do, how they treat themselves. Remember that the China flu or the Kung flu is not here. It wasn't from there. There's more variants coming. So the folks from Brazil, South America, and the UK shouldn't be called names or anything like that also. So, and this time of Black History Month, just remember it's everything's there. Please treat yourselves like I know Council President Aldo always says, you know, treat yourself with love, with respect, because this is also important because the numbers have shown from New York that's a big number when you take a look at it. So again, happy Lunar New Year, but please remember that. So with that, I'll end my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Sefadawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Baruso for bringing that to our to the conversation. I'm seeing the 94-year-old. The attack on the 94-year-old Asian man is really gut wrenching, very sad, and it's very unfortunate that people feel that they could do that to another human being, no matter what. But it's it's really unfortunate that this continues to happen and continues to be provoked by race. And so it's really sad. So thank you for bringing that up. And Public Works and Parks, thank you so much for the hard work. I wasn't able to leave my house, of course, but I knew 356th and 21st, if I could just leave my driveway, I knew I would be safe and could travel throughout. So, but I just want to say thank you for taking care of us and for taking care of the community. It was really great. And Councilmember Linda Kochmar, it's great to have you back. And thank you for that PSA. I will go ahead and schedule my appointment because I've been coughing for over 2 years. So I'm going to take heed to what you just said and I will take care of it. Finally, lastly, what I want to talk about is some of us attended the AWC conference last week, and one of the workshops that I attended was the housing stability. And unfortunately, the workshops were not repeat and short, and so there was a lot of condensed information. But there was a lot of good information. And the housing stability one, some of the statistics they brought up is around the rent assistance payment, and then additional state resources for statewide eviction mediation. These are all bills, and then foreclosure prevention assistance to homeowners. And they said that 10% of homeowners are behind in payments are at risk of foreclosure in 2 months. And I don't think we've talked a whole lot. And then nearly 1 in 4 renters have little to no confidence in making rent next month. And that's a high number. And this is statewide, by the way. But a staggering number, over 559,000 Washington households are housing unstable. And that's statewide. And I just wanted to say 559 households. That's huge. That's scary. As much as we talk about housing insecurity, homelessness, and all this is huge. And I don't know what, once the moratorium is lifted, I don't know if how much that number is going to change. But I believe it's going to go up to where homelessness is going to go up. So, yeah, those numbers are scary to me. And so I hope these bills pass in support of families who do need to stay housed. And if you can, please support, talk to our legislators and support these bills. With that, I do end my.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Council President Honda.
Thank you. I also attended AWC's City Action Days last week, and during that time, right at the very end of it was the 30th District elected officials call. And then, of course, the 30th District Town Hall meeting was this Saturday. So what I'd like to say about that is that due to our students being at home, on Zoom, taking classes at home, and the fact that the legislature is on Zoom, and it would be a really good time to learn about the legislative process, not just for students, but for everyone, for adults, whoever has any bit of time where they can turn on channel 23, which is Comcast, and perhaps watch some hearings or watch the legislature as they take votes, because some of the legislators are remote, some are down in Olympia. And it's just a really good learning opportunity, something that hopefully we won't have legislatures on Zoom in the future, and that this is just going to be this 1 year. But it's a great learning opportunity to see how government at the state level works. So I would encourage whoever has the time to do that, to watch that. I am very fortunate to be back on the King County Domestic Violence Initiative Committee, and we had our first meeting last week. And due to COVID and being stuck in your home, and domestic violence cases have increased. And so I would just encourage people to watch out for your neighbors. If you think someone might be a victim, to do your best to help them. They may not be able to help themselves. Last week, there was a Sound Transit Systems Expansion Committee meeting, and the OMF South was discussed, and the budget concerns were discussed with all 3 sites. On March 16th, which is a city council night, At 5 o'clock, we're going to have a special meeting in which Sound Transit will be coming and talking to us about the OMF. And I would encourage all of us to get the word out to everyone who lives in Federal Way that this is the time to come and hear the information that Sound Transit will be giving to us. And something that I've wanted to see for a number of years happened last week, and I'm really quite excited about that. Sahali Junior High School, or middle school now, my boys were there when the doors opened for the first time, and it was a junior high then, has taken a lot of, it's changed quite a bit. I don't even recognize the school when I walk into it and I spent, 5-6 years there with my kids and was on the PTA and the school advisory team and don't even recognize the building. It's changed so many times. But there is a ribbon cutting for the Sahali Taft School-Based Health Center. And this is a great opportunity for families who need health care to have it right there at the school. And I applaud the school board and our school superintendent for making this happen. It's very much needed in Federal Way, and I hope that the north end of the school district also gets a school-based health center. And due to the snow and the cold weather, some people probably weren't able to celebrate Valentine's Day because they couldn't get out of their driveways or their neighborhoods or for whatever reason. So I would encourage Federal Way residents to make this next weekend, Valentine's weekend, all over again. Go out and support our local stores and our restaurants. They really need the help. They really need the support. And I felt so bad, especially for our restaurants, when we knew snow was coming on Valentine's Day and they had only been open to in-house dining for such a short time. So if you're able to, go out and celebrate again, especially if you weren't able to do it last week on Valentine's Day. So love local, love our stores, support our stores and our retail and our restaurants. They really need it and deserve our support. So thank you. And I'm really pleased with the length of our meetings. This is a good trend, Mayor Farrell.
Thank you very much. I've got a great team here with you and our staff and everybody in the management team. So thank you very much for your reports, for a great, efficient meeting. And I believe that concludes our business. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your second Valentine's.
Yes, you too.
Hey, I did mine. I
Oh,
did
you can do
good.
it again.
I did too.
Sarah,
Don't let my
Sarah
wife
would
hear
like it.
that.
Do it again.
Thank goodness you don't have her cell phone number, Susan.
Bye, guys.
All
I'll
right.
find it.
Take care.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.